Let's turn now back to the phone lines. We have someone that quite a few folks in Birmingham know, Harry Traveling Shoes Turner, very well known for his activism in the community.
Absolutely.
But Harry, as we said, lots of folks have issues with termites, so glad you're calling this evening. How can we help?
Harry, great to have you on today.
Yes.
Hey, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
This question is going back to Danny's question. Well, old home versus new home. Who's really in danger? And should I feel safer since my home is only a year or 2 years versus someone like Danny that was 17 years? So is termite issue old and new, or is it just for old homes?
Chris, we were just talking about that.
That's a great question.
We were just talking about that.
He must have overheard you all talking about that.
That's a fantastic question.
Yeah.
And, you know, some of the old homes were made out of a different type of wood, a harder wood. The wood that they made it out of, the eastern or the native termites really didn't like to eat, but we've got this aggressive Formosan termite that'll eat through just about anything. But if you've got a brand new home that's just a couple of years old, you're probably pretty safe, but I would not let any home go without protection.
That's really good.
And how often we talk about protection, and I want to get you to take a deep dive into that later on in the show, but in terms of putting out chemicals, which I believe you would agree is the best system.
It's absolutely the best.
How often should we do that?
Every 5 to 7 years is what's recommended. And there's a good reason for that. The chemicals that they put out, they are proven to be effective, 100% effective for 5 years by the EPA before they can get registered. So you know you're getting a really good product, and you know that if they maintain it, then the chances of you getting termites inside your house are close to zero.
That's great.
So let me ask this as we wait for a caller. Is it my responsibility as the homeowner to call the company in 5 to 7 years, or should they be on top of that?
I would be really aggressive about calling a company and making sure that they apply the treatment. There's no requirement that they apply the treatment in 5 to 7 years. Some companies will put that in their contract. Some just kind of say, we'll apply the necessary treatments, and they often don't. So yeah, I would stay on them.
Chris, we talked about the bond earlier and what that was, sort of your agreement with the company. I want to talk about treatments.
Yes, please.
And so you've talked about those traps, I think is what some people describe them as, and then the chemical treatments. Let's start by you telling us about the difference between those two.
Okay, and that's a great question, because what you're seeing a lot of now is companies that are out there really pushing these baiting stations. They're different brand names. But basically they have a chemical toxicant inside the bait station. They can be put in the ground every 10 to up to 30 feet apart. Termites are subterranean, they live underground, they can't see, they can't smell, so they're not lured towards any bait. They're like Mr. Magoo, they drive around forage randomly, and they just bump into their food. And when they bump into their food, they'll lay a pheromone trail for the other nest mates to follow. So they're not really being lured or baited towards any of these stations. That's why putting the chemical down at all of the entry points around your house where the termites could actually get in, if they try to go through that soil, it'll kill the termites and they can't get into your house. A lot of termites can travel between that 10 to 30 feet. It takes one termite 1/64th of an inch, about half the width of a dime, to travel. So you think of how many thousands and thousands of termites could get between those bait stations and hit the biggest bait in your yard, which is your house.
So then, is it not worth it to get that system in place?
Well, I would encourage everyone to get a chemical treatment done if they can.
Okay.
But I would get a bait station rather than nothing at all.
Okay.
Because generally speaking, you will at least have some type of protection that goes along with it.
Okay, that's good advice.
It is.